now the financial shoe. You're starting to see some of the economic shoe, but by that I mean you're seeing unemployment going up in Spain, in Greece, but the other shoe that's going to drop is the political shoe. Governments cannot remain in power with 20% unemployment. So you're going to see very substantial radical right and left swings in the periphery in Europe, and that too is going to create political risk and eventually economic and budgetary risk.
What's the fallout then globally? I mean, does the U.S. feel it? No doubt about that.
The U.S. feels it, but the biggest fallout is that the euro doesn't work. And so the periphery is going to be choking on a strong euro unless the euro falls dramatically in value, and there's really no evidence of that. So you can expect places like Greece, Spain, Portugal to have extreme difficulty exporting. And the real question is, when does this spread, and how severely does it spread to Italy?
I mean, so the European...
And there you're going to get...
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Southern versus northern differences.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, does the European Union come undone in your view?
The European Union potentially comes undone 20 years from now. The euro potentially comes undone in 3 or 4 years. And again, that's going to be a political reaction. We've talked about the periphery in politics, but we have to talk about Germany and politics. And you can see just how upset the average German in the street is about being the piggy bank for Europe.
Well, and you know, that's something we've certainly discussed here a lot at Bloomberg. I mean, when does the citizens of Germany say enough is enough? We're not, you know, taking care of everyone. We're not bailing everybody out. I mean, you see that playing out?
Yeah, probably the next election. That's close.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more about China. Europe, obviously, a big global situation we have to watch, as you pointed out. China, too. We did get some news over the weekend on Christmas with the PBOC raising interest rates again. Expectations for more, certainly the folks we're talking to expect more from the Chinese central bank come early next year.
Well, the central thing to keep in mind with regard to all Chinese governmental data is you should not trust it.
Transparency, you mean?
Well, not just transparency. There are strong incentives in the Chinese system for the lower level bureaucrats to lie about the numbers. And they have lied about the numbers on virtually all important data for decades. So the numbers often don't foot. In other words, you look at what is supposedly happening in one sector, and then you look at energy consumption, and the numbers don't track. Probably many of your viewers have seen the satellite photos of the ghost developments in China. You can, if you visited Ireland, you can see the ghost developments there. You can see them in Spain. Well, so in Ireland and Spain, they cause a crisis when those bubbles burst. I see no reason why it won't happen in China as well.
Well, you know, I've talked with noted short seller Jim Chanos in depth about those ghost cities over in China, and really, if you look at the pictures, it's kind of startling. Is their housing crisis going to be as severe as the housing crisis we've lived here in the United States, still living through, really?
Well, the housing crisis will be severe, but in different directions because of the enormous income disparities and the geographic disparities between the more developed coast and the hinterlands of China. So it's going to play out in more complex ways in China, and that's bad in terms of exacerbating some of the social divisions that the People's Republic, the party, is so worried about. Economically, that housing crisis is lagged, and how badly it's lagged depends on how much people lie about the numbers. So, for example, Spain has a massive crisis in housing, but it's still, you can see in the stress tests in the banks that it's lying about the numbers as well. It's not just the Chinese government that lies about numbers.
You mentioned the Chinese government lying about numbers. So they're overestimating. So when they show growth, it's not as strong. When they talk about inflation, it's not as high, or what in your view?
It actually goes in both directions, but you're right in general that they overreport a lot of positive developments and they underreport a lot of negative developments. Also, simply, the whole way that inflation works in an economy that is hybrid, it's not really free, it's not really completely government controlled, is different than it would in the United States, for example.
Those two specific headwinds, Europe and China, it certainly sounds like it could be setting up for a very tough 2011. Professor Black, sit tight for a second. We do have to take a commercial break, but we'll continue our conversation. When we come back, too, I want to talk about the municipal bond market.